Somewhere by the bend in the river, on a high shelf inside an otter's den, sat a small wooden box. Inside, tied neatly with a length of twine, lay a collection of letters written by a badger who lived beyond the hill. Sorrell Otter knew those letters well, but today he would read one aloud. Which one, he hadn't quite decided. Outside Sorrell's den, the river moved steadily past the stones that led to his round front door, and along the path above it, 3 small bunnies were on their way, entirely unaware which story they were about to hear. Roscoe was enjoying the sun on his cheeks and the smell of freshly cut grass. Millie Moonbeam skipped along and jumped up now and then to touch a leaf dangling above her head. Berry was collecting herbs in a little posy. He had found river mint, wild garlic and watercress. You never know, they might always come in handy for lunch. The bend in the river looked much as it had the day before. Pale stones beneath clear water, reeds shifting in the breeze, minnows darting after their shadows. A damselfly hovered, then stitched quick blue lines in the air. When they reached the stone steps that led down to Sorrell's den, they saw he was already there, sitting on a low stool, carving a tiny frog out of a piece of driftwood. He raised a chestnut-coloured paw in greeting. "A pleasure to see you, bunnies," he said. "I hope there's room in your tumblingtons for a spot of lunch." Sorrell led the bunnies into his den. Inside, the air was cool and faintly scented with mint and freshly baked bread. Light from the river outside flickered softly through the windows and made dappled patterns on the earthen walls. A large flat stone served as a table, and upon it lay all that a hungry guest could desire: thick slices of brown bread, curls of butter, and a wheel of creamy cheese. Herbs there were too, fragrant and green, and ripe red tomatoes, the like never seen. On a plate of sliced apples sat a small crock of honey, golden and glowing, the perfect sweet treat for a cottontail bunny. They settled themselves on woven reed mats. No one hurried, everyone relaxed. Bread was passed while the bunnies nattered. Honey was drizzled on pieces of cheese that were popped delicately in whiskery lips. How delightful! The river's steady swash and ripple filled the comfortable spaces between words. The bunnies sat and admired Sorrell's comfortable kitchen. In a nook by the window, Millie Moonbeam noticed a carved driftwood boat. Berry was captivated by a small carving of a heron, its beak fine and sharply precise. Roscoe's eye rested at last on the little wooden box, placed squarely on the highest of 3 shelves. "That's a good place for it," Roscoe observed. Sorrell followed his gaze. "It is," he said, "safe and sound where I can reach it easily when I want to look through the letters." He rose then, slowly, and lifted the box down. He untied the twine with familiar care. "When you found this and brought it back to me, you returned more than a box," Sorrell said gently. "You returned my oldest stories." The bunnies drew a little closer. Before opening the folded paper, Sorrell held it in his paws. "Marlow Badger writes from beyond the hill," he began. "On his travels, he saw that the land there was bare. The wind blew a gale and trees didn't grow, he decided to stay and make his home there to see what he could do. Sorrel smiled faintly. He said the soil must be persuaded. Berry tilted his head. Persuaded? With time, said Sorrel, and with trust. He told them then how Marlow Badger had planted young oaks where the hill sloped east, how he carried water in old tin pails during dry weeks, how he set small woven guards about the tender trunks, so they would be protected until they had grown strong. Millie Moonbeam folded her paws neatly in her lap. Does he live all by himself? She asked. Sorrel considered. He lives with all that grows around him under his care, he said. As the trees he planted grew, along came woodland creatures to make the new oak wood their home too. They still number but few, but now he wakes with bird song and heads to bed with the hoot of an owl. But yes, he keeps his own company most days. The letter lay open now, its edges softened by rereading. Sorrel cleared his throat and began. Dear Sorrel, the wind has been brisk these past nights, and one of the young oaks leaned more than I liked. I set a firmer stake beside it and pressed the soil down with both paws until it held fast again. It's a quiet sort of work, persuading roots to trust the ground. The trees are growing, but the hill looks bare still, though I can see in my mind how it may one day be, and I am happy and content in my new surroundings. I plant knowing I may not sit in all their shade, but someone will, and that seems reason enough. When the rain comes, I think of the river below and hope it runs kindly past your door. I picture you mending your nets or carving a small boat from driftwood, and I am glad of the thought. Trees take time, my friend, so do most good things. Ever yours, in wind and weather, Marlow. The den was very still when Sorrel finished. Outside, a moorhen called from the reeds. The river moved on, untroubled on its meandering way. Berry blinked twice. He plants trees for someone he hasn't met yet, he said. Yes, Sorrel replied. Roscoe nodded. That is caring for things to come. How kind of old Marlow. Millie Moonbeam looked at the letter again. Does he know about us? Not yet, said Sorrel, but he will. He folded the paper carefully along its old creases. When the oaks bear leaves next spring, and their roots hold firm in the wind, he said, he has asked that I come and see them. There was a small pause. Roscoe spoke first. We could walk there with you. Sorrel looked at the three of them, eager, polite, and no longer shy. I should like that very much, he said. The letter was tied once more with twine and placed back inside the box. Lunch plates were gathered, crumbs brushed into their palms and scattered along the path outside for the small birds who would later visit the doorway. The afternoon light shifted slowly across the floor of the den. The bunnies made their way back along the river path. Before long they could see the soft orange glow of the windows of their cottage. Once inside, they warmed some milk, which they sipped thoughtfully through curly straws before heading to bed. Beyond the hill, Young oaks leaned into the wind, their roots holding firm in the soil. And in the den by the river, an otter was making plans. All was snug. All was well. Night, night.